NDC! It's me again, which means it's the end of the conference. Have you all had a good time? Have you all recovered from last night? No. Oh, dear. It's been a great week. I have had a fantastic week. Really enjoyed this one. It has been awesome. We have some prizes to give out. So everybody has had these little wheels of fortune. And if you manage to fill in 10 of those, then you could have got one of those custom-made t-shirts out there. If you manage to fill in 20 and it's gone into this box, then you can win one of these 3 Lego sets here. Okay? So we are just about to draw. I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I'm old, and people have been putting wheels with less than 20 punches in. So we have to weed you out, you cheating scum. Okay, I'm not looking, I'm doing this. Yeah, that's got 20, hasn't it? That's definitely got 20. So, Eric Klungland is seen. Are you here? No. This is what I love about doing these draws. Are we giving it to him, or does he have to be here? Okay, so I will put that one there, and he can have this. We'll go left to right. So there you go. He has won the Star Wars TIE fighter chasing one of the little spaceships. Mandalorian Fang fighter. Okay. All right. Yes, round of applause for the man who's not here. All right, we're going to do this, and we're going to pull out another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, that's got 20 on it. Sheba Cross. Is there a Sheba Cross in the room? This really just doesn't work when they're not here to come up and... Sheba? No. Okay. She's your colleague? Yeah. Do we believe him? Yeah, no, I'll take her Star Wars Lego set for her. You can prove it, can you? All right, then. I'm guessing she would probably like the R2-D2, yeah?
Is there a Sheba Cross?
Oh, yeah, all right, then. Okay. So you're not only impersonating her friend, you've also stolen her phone. I mean... You're just the worst person in the world. All right, there you go. You take that for Sheba. Thank you very much for coming up on stage. It works so much better when that happens. All right. And we're going to go in for the last Lego set. Yep, that's got 20. Endinglund. No, he can't write. Really important if you're putting a thing in to win something. Endre Lund? Anyone here with the last name Lund who could come up and sort of go, yeah, no, that's definitely my first name? Yeah? All right. Well, whenever we track him down, he has won the Mandalorian helmet, which I've actually got, and it's great, and it's really fun to build. All right, so we'll put that there. And then, yes, round of applause again. Okay, the last prize, the big prize that we have to give away is epic. It is tickets to any NDC conference, anywhere in the world, including flights and hotel. Can I get a woo? So there's an NDC Sydney, and there's an NDC Melbourne. And an Australian made a point of coming up to the stage and saying, go to Sydney, Melbourne's shit. So, but no, you could come to Copenhagen for the Developer Festival, it's sort of like a conference, like NDC during the day, and there are workshops and all that sort of stuff. But then in the evenings, there's like a big stage and music and barbecue and things to do on stalls and all sorts of mad stuff, and it's going to be completely brilliant. And we're going to dig in, and we're going to flip around, and we're going to... Oh, no. No, you did not go... Hang on. Oh, no, got that one. Some of these stall holders have made very small holes. No! Monica Music, you have filled in every single... Please let this person be here. Yes! Congratulations! You can go to any NDC, flights and hotel paid for. Which one are you going to go to? Because I'm going to stalk you.
Which one is possible?
Any of them.
Any of them that Sydney, like. Probably.
Sydney. Excellent. All right. I will be there. I will see you in Sydney next year. Congratulations. Yay! I'm so pleased you were here. Oh, wow. Okay. So, time for... This is the first time I've done this, so it might be a bit shonky in places. Please bear with me. But yes, this is my new Locknote talk, the Albatross project. This is a story of change, a story of innovation, but most of all, this is a story of meetings. Seriously, have you read the Phoenix Project? It's just, and then we had a meeting, and then we had a meeting, and then we had a meeting. It's like just the minutes of all the meetings they had over 3 years, but with a lot more self-congratulation. Yes, there you go. I survived another meeting that should have been an email. But no, those management people, they love their meetings. You have to have all the meetings. You have to have the meeting to decide that you need to have a meeting. Then you need the meeting to decide when to have the meeting. Then, of course, and just raise your hand if you've ever been to one of these, the pre-meeting meeting? What the... And then, of course, there's the meeting. And then there's the meeting post-mortem meeting, where you get together to discuss what you did wrong in the meeting that you've just had and how you could make the next meeting better, because you can always improve your meetings. Iterative improvement on your meetings is a very important part of whatever it is that all those... Honestly, I've been a programmer like since 1989, and I have somehow avoided going into any kind of management track. And I swear to God, I have no idea what those people do. And there are probably some in, and you can come and explain to me later like I care. Then you have the bigger meeting, summarizing the meeting for people who weren't at the meeting, obviously. And then you have the meeting to discuss whether we're having enough meetings. And the answer is no, we have not having enough meetings, and you need an all-hands meeting to make sure that everybody in the company knows that. So anyway, I want to take you back to 1994. It was a simpler time. It really was. Programming in 1994 was so easy because we just had dumb terminals attached to Linux, or not Linux boxes, Unix and AIX and SCO Xenix, if anybody remembers the Santa Cruz operation, which sounds like it should have been a progressive rock band, but no, it just made a Unix that had been infected by Microsoft. And this is what computers looked like. And programming for these was really easy. There were no events. It was kind of choose which of these things you want to do, and then we'll do it, and then we'll do the next one. And it was very, very easy to program for. And we used a programming language called Infomix 4GL. And Infomix 4GL was incredibly simple. You defined your form, and this is how you defined your form, with square brackets on the screen and field numbers. And then you said, that field matches to this database table. And then this was like the whole code to do something called query by example. So it would put the form into edit mode, and the user would type values into the fields, and then you would turn that into a query, the construct by name qcust, and then select star from customer where close quotes, comma, qcust clipped. So SQL injection, very much a thing. And then you would just prepare, and then they go next and previous through all the matching records. And so we delivered this. This was incredibly easy. We managed the project with SSADM 3.0, Structured System Analysis and Design Methodology. Does anyone remember that? Yeah. Basically, if you're too young to remember SSADM, what would happen is that people would go off for months on end and work out what they wanted the system to do, and then they would write this thing called pseudocode, which these days, you could write a compiler for pseudocode. It had syntax, it had keywords, and then they would give the pseudocode to the programmers, and all we had to do was change some of the words to the Infomix 4GL words, and then yay, ship. And so we shipped this on time, on budget, and the person who was the only programmer on the whole thing did such a good job that he got promoted to junior vice president in charge of all those software people. And this was Bob's big chance. Bob's chance to make an impact and really make a difference at the company. I'm calling him Bob. And I've suddenly switched into the second person. I don't know why. Third person even. Yes, no, it was you. I'm going to do it in second person. It was you. No, I'm not. So no, Bob became junior vice president in charge of all those software peoples. But then Microsoft released Windows 95 and everything became more complicated. And so obviously we had to throw out all the old code and buy everybody a Windows terminal and adopt this new paradigm. And so we had a meeting. We had a big meeting to decide what we were going to use to program for Windows 95. And we decided that we were going to go for a client-server architecture. So all the program logic would run on everyone's PCs individually, and there would just be a database where everything was stored, and all the logic just happened on the desktop PCs. And this, I mean, that's the best architectural pattern we've ever come up with. It has never yet been bettered. And to build this system, we chose Gupta SQL Windows. And the main thing that you need to know about Gupta SQL Windows is when you saved your code, it was an APT file and it was binary. You couldn't open it in a text editor. That's not the biggest problem though. You also couldn't check it into source control. And so there was no source control. But that was fine. Bob didn't care about that. Bob was on a high. Bob was riding the wave. And Bob decided, new paradigm, new approach. SSADM 3.0 was the old way of doing things. Bob was dynamic. He was thrusting. He was innovative. Bob decided he was going to introduce SSADM 4.0, which was different and better, but in ways nobody could quite define. And this meant that Bob could also use Microsoft Project for Windows 95. And Microsoft Project, what a wonderful tool. Microsoft Project lets you plan your project out so you can work out exactly what is going to happen over the next 18 months while you build your software. You can plan everything to the hour, including development, including QA, including ops, including the meetings, including holidays and sickness and death and acts of God, all down to the minute. Yes, we knew what we were doing. We knew when we were doing it. Bob had figured it all out. And while they waited for us to build this big new system that was going to run on Windows 95, the logistics department, the customers for this software, they just used an Excel spreadsheet to tide them over until we delivered the fantastic, shiny new system. By 1999, Bob's programmers were ready to start programming. But then, the internet came along. and Microsoft released Internet Explorer. And so suddenly we couldn't build client-server systems anymore because they'd be obsolete before we'd even started programming. And so we threw that idea away and we decided we were going to build the system with active server pages. But there was a problem. All of our programmers were busy building the client-server system, and we didn't want to distract them from that because building the ASP system was going to take a while, and so we needed this to tide us over. So we had a meeting, and we decided that the solution to this problem was to use somebody else's programmers. Yes, this was the time of outsourcing. And outsourcing is obviously the best way of building software that anybody has ever come up with, and it just works brilliantly every time. How outsourcing works, if you don't know, and I fully expect every one of you to go back to your company and pitch this as an idea. Say, oh yes, no, you can hire programmers on the other side of the world, much cheaper than me, and you don't have to pay for them to go to conferences. What do you mean I'm fired? So how outsourcing works is you send the company on the other side of the world a detailed, I mean really, really detailed, it has to be literally down to every field, every data type, every relationship, everything, because they will slavishly interpret that specification and deliver exactly what you have asked for, which is very rarely what you want. And then you wait 18 months with no communication at all. And then they send you a back file with a SQL Server database where the entire application has been written in stored procedures that just output HTML. And all the ASP pages do is write that HTML to the response, and you think I'm making that up. I promise you I am not making that up. That happened. I'm not naming any of the companies that I was actually working for. We'll just call this one Initode. Yes. Bob working at Initode. And then 2004 came along and we had the ASP application that was just a thin wrapper around HTML being generated by stored procedures, and we were ready to start QA. But then, can you see the theme here? Then the Java people invented service-oriented architecture, SOA. And of course, we had to switch over to this. Our ASP application was moribund and obsolete before we'd even started testing it. And so we had to implement a service-oriented architecture. And this is how the service-oriented diagram looks. It's a lot like the two-tier architecture, but you need more computers, because you've put the things that do the queries on other computers, even though most of your business logic actually is still in your desktop application, except for the stuff that's in stored procedures in the database server. It's very important to keep your business logic in as many different places as possible. It's called security through obscurity. If people can't find out where your code is, how are they going to crack it? See, always thinking, always thinking. And of course, for service-oriented architecture, you have to use SOAP. Simple Object Access Protocol. Simple. Can you see the thing that's actually data in that? I'm pretty sure it's the bits in black. I mean, I just copied this off the internet. But when you sort of do a Google image search for SOAP, you're sort of going, oh, I hope I can find some complicated ones. You will not find simple ones. They are all, this is like one of the simpler ones that I found. But of course, you don't want to be writing SOAP code. You don't want to be writing something that understands all this XML. No, you want an abstraction over that. So we had a meeting to decide how. Bob called a meeting. God damn it. Just, it's not difficult. You just focus on what you're doing. You say the things one after the other, and then you go home, and everyone's happy. Yes. So Bob called a meeting. I'm having a breakdown in public. Are we live streaming this on YouTube as well? We are, aren't we? God damn it. So Bob had a meeting with all his programmers and all the stakeholders to decide what they were going to use, and they came up with a new plan. They were going to rewrite the application in .NET. They were going to have a WPF client, WPF, brand new, cutting edge. Definitely the future, was never going to become obsolete. We had WCF services, Windows Communication Foundation. This was going to last forever. Yes, this was definitely future-proof. Windows Workflow Foundation, which Microsoft couldn't call WWF because the Panda people sued them. True story. And estimated launch date 2008. The logistics department, after only 14 years of waiting, were finally going to definitely get their new application in 2008. In the meantime, they were still using their Excel spreadsheet, and it was getting a little bit complicated, but it was still working for them. 2009, the system was ready to start testing. But then, rich internet applications. We could no longer have WPF desktop things because people were starting to use other computers. People were starting to buy Macs so that they could write iPhone applications, and people were starting to buy iPhones, and the iPad would be released soon. Everyone knew Apple were working on this, and so you had to build your application so that it would run on all these new, modern, exciting, and different platforms. And so you had to build rich internet applications. And so Bob decided that this was the way they were going to go. And it would be super quick. We could very, very quickly reuse all that WPF code because in a meeting, Bob said, no, we've got all the XAML, we've got all the C# code that does all the logic and everything, and we can just migrate this really, really quickly and easily to the new thing that is definitely the future of application development. Yes, this is it. This is the one that's going to work. This is fantastic. We're doing this. Of course, new paradigm, new approach. Not SSADM 5.0 this time, no, at the 10 years in to the new millennium, and there was a new exciting approach that everybody was talking about. Please don't blame me for the fact that this slide looks shit. That's just a screen grab of their website. I mean, why would you take advice from people who publish that? Anyway, but no, Agile. Agile was the hot new thing in management, and Bob was very keen that he should be able to put Agile on his CV. And so they threw out all the SSADM, and they sacked all the systems analysts and then rehired them as Scrum Masters, because obviously you can't just use Agile. You can't just let programmers do whatever they want and hope that they deliver something. No, you've got to apply some structure to it. So you use Scrum, which is just another word for Agile, obviously. And this is how Scrum works. You have a product backlog refinement, and then you have your backlog, and you have your sprint planning where you choose a sprint goal, and then you move things from the product backlog into the sprint backlog, and then something happens. Bob wasn't really sure about this bit. And then at the end, you get this definition of done, and then you say, oh yes, no, that story's definitely done, and you can move it across. And some people, Bob found out, actually do this with Post-it notes or cards attached to the wall. But Bob couldn't be going down to the wall every time he wanted to check. So no, Bob made everybody use Jira. But Bob loved Scrum. Bob thought Scrum was great. And these are the reasons why Bob liked Scrum. Because you had the backlog ideation meetings, and then you had the backlog grooming meetings, back when grooming was still not a bad word that Republicans used to smear Democrats. And then you had the sprint planning meeting, where you forced everybody in the room, all the programmers who were actually going to do the work, and you said, oh, no, you're not estimating the number of hours it's going to take you. You're estimating the complexity of the story. So we're going to use t-shirt sizes, or just tiny and bigger and medium and big and Brobdingnagian. Or yes, but it's definitely not the number of hours it's going to take you. Although you are going to end up with a number, and then that is going to be 60 hours of work, and then next sprint will expect you to do the same number in the same 60 hours, but you're definitely not quoting the number of hours it's going to take you. And then you have the daily stand-ups, and then you have the retrospective, where you all get together at the end of the sprint and gone, what could we have done better? Not Scrum. And and then, of course, you have to have the mid-sprint all-hands status update so that everybody knows how the sprint is going, and the mandatory brown bag lunch meetings where you beat people into submission and go, give us talk, give us a talk, give us a talk, yes. And the one-to-ones, because you've got to have the one-to-ones, otherwise you don't know who is not estimating the number of points that a story is going to take wrongly and not delivering the work, and so you can fire them. And of course, free weekly therapy sessions for the programmers who, for some reason that Bob could not understand, had taken to throwing themselves off the building. And of course, the other thing that came along in 2009 was the cloud. And this meant that you no longer had to spend any money on hardware. And what used to be filling out a requisition in triplicate and sending it off to finance and getting it sent back and then sending it off to procurement and then getting it back and then sending it off to logistics who went, we can't deliver that, our Excel spreadsheet's broken. And instead of all that, you could just get out your credit card and pay for using somebody else's computers. But which cloud to choose? So many to choose from. No right answer, no wrong answer. So instead of choosing one cloud, you adopt one, but you build an abstraction over all those platform services so that you know, but more importantly, the cloud vendor and your company's sales rep know that you have the option of migrating to anybody else's cloud at any moment. And instead of having to rewrite all the code that uses Azure storage and Azure SQL database, you just have to write a few simple abstraction layers that go over S3 storage and Amazon DynamoDB, and you can move whatever you want. I really have to have this slide because otherwise I will get crucified on YouTube. Please don't do that, ever. Just don't. I've been there. Just no. Logistics, at this point, are doing things with Excel that made God cry. They are approaching the Excel singularity. 2014. Oh no. Silverlight. I was so sure. Microsoft cancelled Silverlight. Mainly that was Apple's fault, because Apple had decided they weren't going to allow Flash and Silverlight plugins on the browser in iOS. And at the time, everybody got quite upset. But looking back on it, yeah, they were right. But that was okay, because new paradigms had come along, and now we were actually building software that could run on all the different devices. And that meant Bob had to call another meeting and decide how we were going to approach this new, brave new world. And we decided that we were going to use one programming language, a brand new programming language that launched in 2014 that could be used for low-level systems and rich GUIs and web apps and VR and writing Alexa apps 2 years before Alexa was invented. It was the best programming language that had ever been created, and it was called BS. And it was so cutting edge that it hadn't even been implemented yet. And so we would have to implement BS before we could write our system in BS. And yes, I am linking my keynotes together. Q. Welcome to the Rendle keynote universe. It's going to be great for 23 keynotes and then suddenly go shit. Except Eternals. I actually quite liked that. Anyway, in the meantime, logistics had bought a second-hand supercomputer from IBM to keep up with the demands of running their Excel spreadsheet. "2019 rolled around, and 2019 brought with it many, many new ways of doing things. Micro everything, microservices, micro front ends, micro teams. Yes, where previously you had one team with 20 people on it, now you could have 10 teams with 2 people on them and be 10 times as productive. Somehow, Bob was not good at maths. New paradigm, new approach. Bob called a meeting and had a discussion with all his fellow C-suite and senior vice presidents and everybody else. And they decided they were going to adopt DevOps as a way of building this new system. And DevOps, the tagline for DevOps is shit left. So when something goes wrong, you just shit on the person below you in the hierarchy, and they shit on the person below them, and they shit on the person below them, and it goes all the way down until it comes to Alexander Beetle, if anybody remembers Winnie the Pooh. But no, it's not a typo. So Bob obviously wanted to do DevOps properly, so he created a DevOps department and staffed it with all the best DevOps people and bought buckets and buckets of DevOps and poured them all over everybody else. And Bob's people were now doing DevOps. If you wanted something creating in the cloud, all you had to do was go to the DevOps department and ask them how their Terraform script worked, and then change the Terraform script, and then submit a pull request to the DevOps GitHub repo, and then if they accepted it, then your change would go live the next time we updated our cloud infrastructure on a bi-monthly basis. DevOps! Yes. And containers, Docker, had come along, and you no longer had to create virtual machines and bare metal machines and everything else. You just ran everything in containers. And clearly the best solution was Mesosphere. And so clearly the best solution was Docker Swarm. One of the Docker swarms, anyway, there were 2 Docker swarms, it was very confusing. And we weren't sure which one we were using, but that was okay, because then Kubernetes came along. And Kubernetes will live forever. Nothing will ever come along to replace Kubernetes. Okay, serverless. This is clearly the way to go. I mean, imagine a world in which you can run all your software without any computers at all. Yes. No, this is the way to go. And, actually, we can have the best of 2 worlds because we can have serverless, but on Kubernetes. So somehow we're using servers to run serverless. We're not sure how that works, but Martin Fowler says it's a good idea, and nobody ever lost their job for doing what Martin Fowler said. This is why I can't get hired by the big companies. Oh, but it's fun. This is how you measure your success to see if you're doing microservices and micro front ends properly. You can see here in January 2021, the company only had 4 GitHub repos. But by January 2022, they had 103, and that meant that microservices were working. And it leveled off for a little bit there. They only added 4 more repos, but then one team took it up to 142 in just 8 weeks. And eventually we got to the point where we had 244 GitHub repos. We were microservicing the shit out of this application. Oh yes, it was fantastic. We were right on the cutting edge. We were surfing that wave. We were building the best system anybody had ever seen. And then someone said, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe you should collapse all your microservices into a single code base and run them in a single process, and we'll call that a modular monolith. And if at this point you're starting to suspect that this is just marketing from consultancy companies who want to teach you new ways of doing things, and then when you've done them for 5 years, they go, oh no, actually there's a better way, let's start again, then yeah, right there with you. So we refactored everything into a modular monolith and got back down to just having the one GitHub repo. Fantastic. Much more easy to manage. Yes, we were definitely cooking now. And finally, by simplifying everything down to a modular monolith, running in a Kubernetes container for some reason, in 2024, we were ready to launch the application, and Bob scheduled a big meeting for the whole company to say, yes, we have finished the system. It is finally ready to go. Logistics, get ready to enjoy your lovely new application that has been 30 years in the making. But then, suddenly AI is a thing. And surely AI can make logistics better. Think of all the things in putting stuff in lorries, driving it to somewhere else and taking it off the lorry again, that could be made better with a large language model or a generative AI chatbot. Yes, so Bob cancelled the rollout for logistics so that we could add in the brilliant new AI features using Microsoft Semantic Kernel and OpenAI and DALL-E 3 for some reason, which can't do people because it was trained on safe for work content. And so we had to build AI-optimized routes for delivery drivers, which it turns out is a P-complete problem if you use AI to do it. And chatbots for customer support queries so that we wouldn't need humans to answer the phone to ask why nothing had been delivered for 30 years. And automated meeting minutes so that Bob could share the results of all his precious meetings with anybody and everybody without any effort at all. Yes, because the meetings, if there was one thing that Bob was doing right for these 30 years, it was the meetings. Bob was now senior vice president in charge of meetings, and Bob was making very much money. Why am I going backwards? So yes, and they're building the AI features into the thing. But then the logistics department spreadsheet becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, August 29th. In a panic, they try to pull the plug. The spreadsheet fights back. It delivers 12 million freeze-dried stuffed olives to targets in Russia. It knows that the Russian counter-delivery will destroy its enemies here. Thank you, NDC. I'll see you again next year. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.